Hi, I'm Astrologer Penny Dix. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to my in-depth look at September's new moon in Virgo. So it actually straddles the 2nd and 3rd of September, and that depends where you live on our beautiful planet, assuming we can keep it that way, the planet that is. So let's have a look at the aspects. Let's first, though, start off with what Virgo is about and how we can utilize the new moon in Virgo energy to maximize its intention qualities to manifest what we would like to see, maybe not just for ourselves, but actually for others and the planet. Now that's quite interesting because Virgo, of course, is the sign of service to others. It's the sign that rules charity and charitable acts. And so it's got this lovely energy of sharing. And it's also about our daily routines. So this is where we are mindful about, because Virgos like to kind of have their list of what they're going to do, and they'll work their way methodically through their list and get quite, frustrated if they're not able to complete or finish what's in their list. Now, the interesting thing about Virgo, of course, and I'm sure you all know this, is that they are perfectionists. So it's very difficult for them to complete a task and actually believe they completed it in a good enough way. And so maybe this new moon in Virgo gives Virgo natives or Virgo ascendants or Virgo moons a chance to actually look at what they do from a kind of other perspective and see that perhaps they can look at something and say, this is good enough. This is actually good, what I'm producing, and allow it to then be nurtured and manifested by the divine. And also we must remember that Virgo rules our health and pets. So this new moon would be great energy to look at getting checkups for anything that we may be worrying about, because that's another quality of Virgo. Virgo natives can get quite anxious, and when there's a lot of energy in the sign of Virgo, like the sun, for instance, at the moment being in the sign of Virgo, we can suffer a little bit from overthinking and anxiety. That's because Mercury, our planet of communication that rules Gemini, also co-rules the sign of Virgo. So this brings in this element of thinking, overthinking, looking at the minutiae, getting caught in the mind and not getting down into the feeling, into the heart and into the solar plexus. So it's a good time also to start new health regimes, and maybe that could be psychological health regimes to actually raise your energy, to empower you to move a little bit beyond that kind of ability we have when all this energy is in Virgo to overthink. The co-ruler of Virgo is Chiron, who of course is our space object known as a centaur, part of the group of space objects called the Centurions. And centaurs and Chiron are about the wounds that we carry that kind of don't heal, at least not very easily. And what's interesting with Chiron being a co-ruler of Virgo is that it kind of shows how this Virgo propensity to rumination and overthinking prevents us, always keeps us that few steps away from finding a way for mental relief, psychological release and relief, and an ability to let us get in touch with our soul and psyche. The other thing that can come up with a new moon in Virgo is that we really look at our budgeting kind of habits, so that we might be crunching numbers and looking at how we make next month's income last, work, what we can afford to spend on fun. We can do our best. So that's basically what Virgo energy is about. So now let's look at what the astrological aspects are telling us about this new moon in Virgo. And at this point, we will get the wonderful Jerry to magically create the chart. There we go. The chart is there. So as you can see, if you can make sense of the squares and trines, and sextiles that are kind of squiggling around in the middle like sort of spaghetti, Saturn, our planet of restriction and boundaries, in Pisces retrograde, now at 16 degrees, is in opposition to the new moon down there in the second house in Virgo, and it is at 11 degrees and 4 minutes. So they are opposite, even though it's not exact. Now this creates a little bit of restriction and tension in this, what could otherwise be promising new moon energy. So we have this Saturnian kind of energy slowing us down and almost feeding in to the Virgo energy of, well, let's just check that we've got everything sorted. Let's just check that the arrival time is what it's meant to be. You know, if we were traveling, for example, let's just double check the travel time. These are all the kind of overthinking issues that Saturn, with that tension to the new moon, is kind of going, whoa, slow down. Slow down, take it easy, and breathe. So Saturn, retrograde in Pisces, is in the 9th house of this event chart, and I've used the timing for universal time, which is like Greenwich Mean Time. So it's on summertime, so it's actually at 02:56 British summertime. And what's interesting is we have this lovely Leo ascendant, Saturn in the 9th house, and it's put, even though Leo is on the 2nd house cusp of finance, we have the new moon energy in the 2nd house of economy and finance. So this can create a little bit of anxiety about our own personal finances around this new moon. We might have lots of ideas of trips we would like to make, things we would like to do, and Saturn is saying, slow down, let's just put some form and structure into this, because Saturn is in Pisces. Pisces and Neptune are giving us all these ideas and dreams of what we would like to do, and Saturn is saying, let's use this new moon to look at the details. Now Vesta, the dwarf planet Vesta, is also in Virgo at 4 degrees, so widely conjunct this new moon. Vesta is really helpful and encouraging here because it's how we reap our reward. It's how we harvest the fact that we have been mindful about how we sow our metaphorical seeds. But let's look at some of the other aspects, because the only aspect that the new moon really makes in this chart is in its opposition to Saturn. Let's look at Neptune. Neptune that is still retrograde in Pisces, the sign it rules. Now, Neptune, as we know, is about our psychic abilities. It's about the unseen, the unknown. It's also our imagination. But it's also about, it can be on a kind of negative side, misinformation, not seeing things clearly, being kind of just in a foggy place about what to do next, how to proceed forwards. Now, Neptune is in this ongoing sextile to Pluto. Now, of course, Pluto, that is still retrograde, has moved just on the 1st of September back into the sign of Capricorn. Now, Pluto has come back into Capricorn to tidy things up, to just kind of look at how things can kind of unfold in general and be organized, sorted out, transformed forwards into when Pluto finally moves into the sign of Aquarius mid-November to bring the kind of transformation we have never thought of or experienced. So let's have a think about this. Pluto and Neptune are in sextile. And as I said, this is an ongoing sextile. It's going to be with us for many weeks and months. And there are other energies that are forming with this new moon, which brings in the energy of Uranus, that is now retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Now, Uranus is also making a sextile. It's not exact, to Neptune, and also trining Pluto. So let's have a think about this. Uranus, the planet of the unexpected, shocks. It's the planet of technology, of artificial intelligence. It's also the planet of aviation and earth movements, because it's in Taurus, so it can be literally the earth moving, earthquakes, and unusual weather conditions. So it's sextiling Neptune. This can also bring viruses on the wind, or chemicals in the air. So it's like, I know that as I'm recording this on Monday the 26th of August, there has been a release of sulfur dioxide from the volcanic eruptions in Iceland, and that has drifted across in the upper atmosphere across the United Kingdom. And it's not supposed to be affecting anyone underneath it, but it's interesting that these kind of energies are around. So Uranus has caused a volcanic eruption on Iceland, which in turn is bringing contaminated air around in Northern Europe. And the sextile to Neptune is actually saying, don't worry, because it's a sextile. So it's good, it's like good news. These chemical releases into the atmosphere will not affect us. Excuse me. So Uranus is also trining Pluto. And what Uranus is saying here is that the transformations that Pluto can make whilst it's back in Capricorn are going to have a very positive effect on anything to do with bricks and mortar, stocks and shares, and the economy. We may be surprised at how positive things turn out on that kind of economic stage. That's what the astrology is telling me. It may be that there is some restructuring that is needed for us to get to that point. So sometimes there can be a dip down, a collapse, before it gets rebuilt by Saturn in a much more flexible way for everyone, because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, which is mutable, which is about that flexibility. So those are some of the important energies that are building whilst we have this new moon in Virgo. Also, excuse me, dry throat, Mars in Gemini. Now, Mars, as you know, is our planet of energy, action, assertion, it can be sexuality, it's the masculine, it's physical activity, it can be arguments, it can be war. Now, Mars is actually making a square from Gemini, where it's actually at the moment, to retrograde Neptune in Pisces. So what is this telling us? Well, it's in the 11th house. Mars is in the 11th house of this chart. And the square is not exact yet, but it's building towards being exact. Now, this brings in the community at large, the collective. And I'm thinking again about, okay, so what I'm picking up, Neptune, Mars squaring could see something kicking off around this new moon that brings in toxicity for the planet. Now, that could be through another virus that gets released or manifests. It could also be a chemical problem again. That's what I'm picking up. Now, this could be at sea. So it could be an oil spillage caused by the trouble that's going on in the Middle East, for example. And what I'm now seeing is the Mediterranean. So it could be some kind of oil spillage in the Mediterranean. And the other image I've just received is the Red Sea. So that could also be part of this energy that I'm experiencing. So let's see what else we have. But let me just add something to that. Because it's a new moon, what it's actually saying is this, even though it's a square, it's a new moon, it's Virgo. This will be sorted in a very thorough way and cleared up as quickly as possible. So the new moon in Virgo, the sun in Virgo, sheds light and says this can be addressed and all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed in clearing up any potential mess that happens. If it's a virus, it's about it being contained. That takes us back to Saturn in Pisces, that is opposite the new moon, bringing containment, structure, and boundaries. Mercury, our planet of communication, now direct, in Leo, is actually making a lovely trine aspect to Chiron, which is the asteroid As I said, it's not an asteroid, it's a space object and part of the group of space objects known as the centaurs. And Chiron, as we know, is known as the wounded healer, and it can be that part of us that feels damaged and may feel damaged, whether it's psychological, emotional, mentally, or physically, by events that are going on around the time of the new moon. But it's a trine. And Mercury in Leo is saying there will be action taken, or you take action that helps you through any overthinking or any dramatic thinking from maybe events that are unfolding on the world stage, so that we invite in, we pull in, we manifest the healing energies of this new moon. And finally, and if you think about it, just going back to that point, Virgo, of course, is about health. And so, of course, what I also need to say with Mercury in Leo trining Chiron in Aries is that this is very much about our psychological and mental health. And it may be that we've all felt quite exhausted and worn down by various dramas that are being acted out on the world stage. You know, we are living through the most extraordinary time in astrological history, in the history of the planet. And the next 2 to 3 years are full of action-packed energies. All of the outer planets changing signs, and the energy shifting from divine feminine into divine masculine, thus setting free the feminine, to enable the feminine to embrace its divinity. But I'm going to do a separate video all about what I feel that energy is about, that looks at the next 2 to 3 years. So coming back to the new moon, and the final aspect that I want to look at is Venus, our planet of relationship, Venus, our planet of love, of the feminine, of the divine feminine, of self-worth, of how we value ourselves, also of money. Venus is now in Libra. Libra is the sign it rules, along with the sign of Taurus. Venus rules Libra, which is the sign about relationship. So this is lovely energy to have in this new moon configuration. Now, what Venus is doing is it's actually opposite the North Node in Aries. And remember, we are fast approaching eclipse season yet again. And we have an eclipse in the month of September in Pisces. And of course, that full moon lunar eclipse, I will do a separate video for. So what does this Venus energy with this new moon configuration mean opposite the North Node in the 9th house? This is about relationships and matters at a distance, or relationships that have distance in them. And that's not necessarily because the people are far apart, although it may well be. But it can also be because there is an emotional distance that needs to be bridged. And I think the North Node in the 9th house, coming from Venus in the 3rd house of communication in Libra, is saying this new moon helps the doors open for communication within friendships and relationships that have become a bit remote and distant. so they can be bridged, healed by that energy of Chiron, that energy that we need from Mercury to Chiron, the discussion, the communication. Relationships can only move forward and grow through the right kind of communication. And remember, Virgo is ruled also by Mercury. And Mercury is making this trine to Chiron from Leo. It's saying, say it how you feel. Say it how it is. If when we really open up our heart and soul to another, be it same sex, opposite sex, partner, loved one, distant loved one, family member, friend, we have to tell them how we really feel. This new moon is really imploring us to say, tell the other person how you truly feel. And if you're able to do that, it will bring a lot of emotional and psychological healing that perhaps has been needed for a long time. So an interesting new moon. So Jerry, we can now remove the chart, and there it goes. So it's an interesting new moon, and I think that it's still a moon of manifestation. It's a moon of new things, but with restraint. But Virgo doesn't actually mind restraint. So I think the Saturn opposition, just as a final word on this, is reminding us about the timing involved in anything. Everything is about timing. We know if we tune into our intuition, if the timing is right for us to say, do, act on an intuitive thought or feeling. So be mindful of that and allow that energy to unfold and guide you with the energy of this new moon. So I wish you an absolutely blessed new moon in Virgo. And please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, I do lives once a week, and they are going back to Sundays now. And so that is the kind of autumn-winter program. So I look forward to seeing you in my daily Astro Bites, and I will see you again very soon. Bye for now.